Hello, today we're going to do a full deployment of a website from Visual Studio to GitHub into Azure Static web apps. And these web apps, this newer concept is a web app only for static files, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and so on. It will consist of 6 steps, so we will start generating a repository from Microsoft. So this is a vanilla empty repository. I couldn't really find any projects in Visual Studio that fit the bill for what I wanted to do. Then we will clone that repository to Visual Studio. We will add all the website files to Visual Studio into that project that we just cloned. We will commit our site to Git. We will connect Azure to GitHub, and then we will deploy GitHub to Azure. So then we have as such a DevOps pipeline with GitHub, so GitHub Actions. After that, we will test to make some changes in Visual Studio and see that they go the whole way through onto Azure. Okay, let's get started. So here we are inside GitHub, and now we are going to use the Microsoft URL to copy their template for a vanilla site, which is almost empty, onto our GitHub, so that we have the repository created, so that we can import that into Visual Studio. So here we go. So I'll call it main site, and just put in a description so that I know where this comes from. Put it onto private, and then I create the repository from the template. Takes a little while, and there we can see our vanilla JavaScript app has been created in my GitHub, and they only index HTML and a style CSS file inside of this. So here we are inside Visual Studio, and we're going to choose a Git, create repository. Then we need to find the URL we're going to use. That will be the URL of our repository in GitHub. So copy paste of that one, and into Visual Studio with it, and then then we just need to choose the path where we're going to save this, and going. And now we are cloning the repository from our GitHub into Visual Studio. And there we can see it. So the source is there's the main folder, and the index and the style CSS as we saw it in our GitHub repository. So now we are ready to go with the putting in all the static websites, or static web page. And now I've sped this up a little bit, so this is 10 times the normal speed. I thought it wouldn't be that interesting to see me putting in all kinds of static web files into the Visual Studio structure. So this will go through quite fast, and then we are ready for the next step, what we should do. So now we are ready to commit all the files to our local repository. So just set in a description and then commit. Just takes a couple of seconds. There we go. And now we are going to push them to our GitHub repository. There you go. So, and that was it. So now we jump into our GitHub repository, update, and now all the files are in here as expected. So the next step then is to go into Azure and create the Azure Static web app, which I'm going to do now. So put in a name. Choose the plan type. So I'm going to go for free here. That is, you can have one free. And I'm going to choose the location. And now, after I choose GitHub and then deployment details, you need to connect the two. And hereby done. So now we can choose the organization, the repository, and the branch. And now it shows custom, and tell where my site, the root of my site is. And we are going to review and create it. So now the validation is in progress, and there it goes. So now we can create, press the create button to deploy our static web app. This takes a little while, and in the meantime I can say that as soon as the web app is deployed, it will try to do an initial deployment from GitHub, so to pull the files from GitHub into the Azure web app. So here we go. Now it is deployed. And here we are in GitHub again. And if you go to GitHub Actions, you will be able to see the actions that has been built by Azure and that are running when you do a deployment from Visual Studio. So and here you can see it was successfully done, and now it is left to test our web app in Azure to see that everything is as expected. One comment though is that I needed to change this line, shows the build to true, for getting this to work. Right, it took a long while for me to get this to work, as it failed every time until I put this line into this properties file. Right, so now it did run through, and now if we go to Azure and test with the URL, you can see that the whole site has been deployed. Yeah, so there seems to be some style missing, but I'll fix that afterwards. Thank you.